It's election time in the USA, and by the time this video is released, the next US president would have been elected. I personally don't talk much about politics, whether on videos or even in real life. All I want is for people to choose their elected officials fairly, and I hope that that is the end result this time around. But it concerns me that most people are not even aware that the messages they see on the internet about politics, and in fact about many other topics, are specifically targeted because some entities know what you believe. This applies not just to what you buy or even just politics, but a whole slew of information that characterizes you, and it can be used against you. This was already brought to our attention during the last presidential election with the revelation of Cambridge Analytica, but once again we ignore the warnings. I get a lot of comments on my videos about people saying they have nothing to hide, yet they have no idea of the consequences of someone taking your privacy away and knowing what you're thinking. In real life, if you post a placard on your lawn of your preferred candidate, you risk getting vandalized. On the internet, there are even worse consequences. There are many cases in history where governments in power have tried to identify subgroups in society and have silenced them or eliminated them. And now identifying people by their ideas is simple. Let's discuss this profiling problem and who the main players are and its effect on something more than privacy, and that's freedom. Stay tuned. I post my videos ahead of YouTube on the platform Odyssey. I have a link in the description for you to follow me there. This is a new uncensored platform, previously Library. Most people have a very simplistic view of life choices. It's time to vote, so you vote and watch the election unfold and you think, wow, I live in a free country. That's awesome. Unlike many of my co-citizens of the USA, I had the experience of living in a dictatorship country where votes don't count and opposing opinions put you in jail. Many who watch this video from other countries with a non-democratic government like the CCP or even monarchs understand this feeling well. It's a helplessness and about not having choices. I've seen many people I knew disappear, and I had no idea if they went into hiding to evade arrest or if they were actually arrested and never heard from again. Fortunately, I discovered that many went into hiding intentionally and lost decades of their lives and career because of fear. We have much to thank for our freedoms in the US. I certainly don't want a repeat of this experience in my lifetime. But there are ways to exert influence on people in unfair ways. All someone has to do is to hide alternative opinions, wash them from view, minimize them with a countering volume of opinions, and present untruths. Unfortunately, this is very easy to do in social media and on the internet, if someone knows what you believe. Young people are particularly vulnerable with things like trending topics. On Twitter, for example, it is easy for third parties to amplify a message using fake bot accounts. This makes you think an issue is believable because of some post that has a lot of retweets and comments, yet you had no idea how much of it is real. When you go search for certain topics, especially those with a political taint, on Google, since Google knows a lot about you, it starts to give you a set of search results which will clearly vary from someone else with the opposite political belief. When you look for coverage on a certain topic, it is plain to see that some information may be censored. It's funny about censoring and tracking. If the party being attacked is opposite your political point of view, the censoring is great. If it is within your point of view, then the censoring is bad. Let's be balanced in thinking about this, people. I believe all ideas should be heard, no censorship, and sunlight will bleach the untruths. Regardless of your political belief, I would like people to be given all the information, and then democracy will prevail and the public will make the correct choice for that time. But what if the information is colored? Is it possible to sway our choices if someone knows our opinions? There are several companies intent on doing just this. Today I will talk about two of these companies. One of them is Jigsaw and the other one is Palantir. There are other companies funded in the billions and they have a specific task. Instead of just collecting data, they want to use the data to change behavior, to change opinions, to change attitudes. In other words, influencing your thoughts is the new big business. Jigsaw is a division of Alphabet and you can find it on jigsaw.google.com. Palantir just went public recently and has a valuation near 20 billion. Jigsaw is obviously powered by the Google billions. Now, one thing different between Jigsaw and Palantir is that Jigsaw can take its data from all of google.com, so its database is already huge. Palantir acquires its data from any place it can find, but because of government contracts, it actually has access to the government database, like driver's licenses, health records, IRS records, social security databases. Think about an entity that has the data that competes with the NSA, but is a private company. Before the election in 2016, I was warning people about Cambridge Analytica and the fact that this company had collected the data of 50 million Americans. When it was still low-key to the public, I showed in live stream videos how Cambridge Analytica basically profiled each American with a personality. This was based on social media data, so Cambridge Analytica could tell who the introverts and the extroverts were, for example. And this personality model was being used as a way to target messages to subgroups. The more targeted the message, the more likely you will be convinced to believe something different. At the time, Cambridge Analytica was used in the later stages of the campaign by Republicans by micro-targeting messages to subgroups. It was used later in the game, so I don't know how effective it was in 2016. But it was bothersome to think that many people were the subject of message manipulation. Of course, Cambridge Analytica became a big scandal because the data about personalities actually came from Facebook through an app loophole that I was talking about even since 2014. Social media data was extracted and collected by various entities, including social media aggregators, Axiom, Intellius, Spokeo. What is interesting to note is that the data scientist that constructed the model for Cambridge Analytica was a Palantir employee. And no one mentioned much of Palantir during this process. You see, Palantir is already well known to entities in government. Palantir's main contracts are to do data mining and manipulation for the government. Not only does it have contracts with the federal government, cities like Los Angeles, Chicago, and others have contracts with Palantir. One of the most well-known Palantir contracts is with the city of LA, where I live. LA has a lot of street cameras and freeway cameras. These do facial recognition and license plate recognition. This data is used by Palantir together with other data it already has from the government and the internet to do pre-crime. Under the guise of gang control, the LAPD identifies individuals it projects will be future gangbangers, and the police then stop these individuals in their car and basically harass them to make sure they know they're being watched. There are a lot of press reports on this, so you can search for it yourself if you want to learn. What is interesting here is that this is one particular use of this technology. Snowden made us aware of another use of this technology. He claimed that the GCHQ, which is the NSA of the UK, actually targeted Muslim individuals in the UK and basically changed what they saw on the internet. And the intent was to change what they see if they were leaning to extremist behavior. As it turns out, Jigsaw had a program that specifically targeted Muslim extremists and was called the Abdullah Project. And now apparently Jigsaw is focused on researching how to control disinformation, or I suppose you can call it fake news. If you look at these publicly known offensive uses of data mining, they all sound like they have good purposes, so the public just ignores it. What you should think about is that someone was able to take our data on the internet and use it offensively to alter our opinions. Back during the US-Soviet Cold War, this would be called brainwashing. And now it's all nice and happy stuff to prevent terrorism. Pre-crime, folks. So you haven't done anything, but just due to the circumstances of your birth, you are deemed to be a future criminal? What about my messages on privacy? Does someone try to minimize what I say because they are shills for those entities that need your social media data to control you? How much of what you see on the internet is real and how much of it is manufactured? And I'm not even talking about broadcast media. Do they have biases? I don't know. The internet is more dangerous though because it can be targeted. Once a Palantir or a Jigsaw knows what you believe because you've been feeding the internet with all your data, then their AI can make judgments about you that can be used later. It can be used to sway your vote. It can be used to make you believe a certain issue is the most important of all. It can make you ignore certain opinions. You can be triggered to be more violent. Foreign countries just love this. And this offensive use of data can be given altruistic labels, but I call it what it is: brainwashing. So some of it is subtle, like Google and Apple making you focus your lives on putting data on your phones, while here I fight to make you rethink this. Some of it is also by banning ideas from being on their mobile platforms, which they now control even more because they're the spigots of information on the internet. Some of this is done by entities blocking information from flowing and labeling it disinformation. I remember when the Prime Minister of New Zealand actively pushed to block the viewing of mass killing in a mosque, and all the large internet sites dutifully agreed and blocked it. Was it to make us think it didn't happen and change history? This is remarkably like what Big Brother does in the book 1984. Let me offer a conclusion to this, folks. I often make the statement which I will repeat now. Knowledge is power. Deny them the knowledge, and you deny them the power. And them here includes Palantir and Jigsaw or Google. Just like they control the data that we see, we need to control the data that they see. And that, my friends, is done by our own brand of disinformation. And this is not fake news. This is disinformation on our identity. We cannot stop the flow of data in this internet-driven world, but the AI can be confused. If the AI cannot associate the data of your activities and statements to an identity, the data becomes useless. This is really the trick to what I teach in this privacy channel. Confuse them by identity disinformation. Remember this, it doesn't require much to confuse the AI. And no, you don't need to be anonymous. You just have to have a fake identity. Yes, if the government wants to actively surveil you, it is a completely different issue. You will be found. But if you simply want to disappear from being a target on their offensive database, then watch my other videos and learn about pseudo-anonymity, hiding your IP address, phones with no device fingerprint, blocking browser fingerprinting, and leaving Facebook. And that's a big one. There is much to learn on this channel, and it's not from a single video. So please subscribe if I pique your interest. I don't want you to miss out on important issues. Thank you for your support on Patreon, and check the description for my store, which has some privacy products like Bytes VPN, DGoogle phones, and Brax routers. See you next time.